In today's video, we are going to be ranking which assistive devices are the most useful for blind people like me. Hi, my name is Josh Tseng. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about what it's like to live with blindness. A lot of you will be aware that there's many different sort of devices and objects that can help people like me in our daily lives. But what you might not know is, number one, just how many of them are there, and number two, which of them are the best and which of them are the worst. So today we're going to be ranking them in the ever popular tier list format. And so the first thing I want to do is define what I consider an assistive device. So my definition of an assistive device is any kind of object that can help a person who is blind or vision impaired perform a very specific function. And without this object, without this device, the task that they would like to perform would either be prohibitively slow, dangerous, or just downright impossible. The next criteria that I have is that the assistive device does not necessarily need to be some kind of electronics or technology, but most of them will be. You will see what I mean by this in a little bit. And finally, the factors that affect my ranking include affordability, cost, practicality, complexity, and my personal opinion. So without further ado, let's begin with number one, the white cane. Also called the mobility cane for the blind, this is an easy S tier. The white cane is a simple, affordable, easy to use device, if you want to call it that. It's basically a stick. It can't get any simpler than that. But its invention and its widespread adoption has made outdoor navigation for the blind just that much possible. It has opened up an entire world of independence for people with blindness like myself, and for that reason it definitely belongs in the S tier. Now the alternative to the white cane is the guide dog, and I know that you might be able to see it among the options, but we'll get to that later. Number two, screen readers. Another easy S tier. Screen readers, if you don't know, are pieces of software that, as the name suggests, read what's on a computer screen. So they use what's called text-to-speech technology in order to interpret text that appears on displays and basically interpret that into speech that a little robotic voice would parrot back to the user. This has allowed the digital age to be accessible to people with vision impairments. In fact, it is single-handedly the thing that allows everyone who is low vision or blind to use a computer or smartphone. If you don't believe me, the voice-over screen reader on iPhones is what allows me to use my phone, and the JAWS and NVDA screen reader on my computer allows me to use my computer. Now, historically speaking, not all screen readers have been affordable. JAWS, the screen reader built by Freedom Scientific, till this day still costs like over $1,000. But there are free options for screen readers, including the ones built into the iPhone and the previously mentioned NVDA, which is developed by the NV Access organization, which is a non-profit entity that is dedicated entirely to building this software and making it free and open source for everyone. So because of that democratization of screen readers, that has allowed so many people all over the world who are vision impaired, and many people who are vision impaired are low income, it has allowed these people to access the internet finally. Easy S tier. Number three, CCTV camera devices and software magnifiers. The name that I just described is kind of convoluted, but basically these are devices that allow vision impaired users to enlarge images and better be able to see things close up without actually having to press their noses against things. So for the cameras, it's a literal camera that you can put in front of you, and you can use it to zoom in onto things like whiteboards or papers on the desk or really anything really. And software magnifiers do the same thing, but on software. So on a computer monitor, this is basically just zooming in onto the screen. I personally, even though I've never really used this functionality before, in my personal opinion, I'll give it a B rank. Some people with vision impairments might actually think that I'm putting it a bit too high or a bit too low, but there is a particular reason why I decided to give it this score. The CCTV cameras and software magnifiers are really useful for people who have remaining vision. This is a fact. But these forms of technology can often be a sort of crutch for people who have very low vision, almost to the point of blindness, but they cannot or do not, for whatever reason, want to switch over to something that can decrease the strain on their eyes or the reliance on their eyesight, like a screen reader. Because the thing with a screen reader is that it's text to speech, so you don't actually need to look at the screen. So you're not straining your eyes, you're not relying on something which is, let's be real, possibly going to go away, and it sets you up a lot better to work a lot faster. With screen readers, people can do really incredibly fast things on their computers, but with a magnifier, you are going to be slow because you're relying on your poor vision to look at things up close. So your reading is going to be slow, it's going to be cumbersome. It really is not the ideal choice for some people with vision impairments, particularly for those who have worsening eyesight. The CCTV cameras and software magnifiers are excellent technology which are super useful, but I feel like the way some people use them lends itself to being almost misused. So, B rank. Number 4, optical character recognition, or OCR. So OCR is going to get a solid B rank. Optical character recognition is using computer vision and artificial intelligence to intelligently, quote unquote, recognize fonts that are being printed on a piece of paper, and basically by scanning the image and using AI to match it with existing databases, it gives you the result of what it thinks is being printed on the paper. Now this sounds incredibly useful, and to some people they go, oh my god, technology is so broken. But it's not perfect, as you can imagine. If it sounds too good to be true, it often is. The thing is, OCR technology is kind of unreliable sometimes. This is not a scientific calculation, obviously, but you can get anywhere between a 60 to 90% accuracy on what you scan, depending on many things like the layout, the font used, the size of the print, and so on. More importantly, even though this seems really broken, it's also really slow. Like if you think about it, if I have a 500-page textbook and I want to be able to read it, scanning 500 pages is going to take an insane amount of time. If at best I take 20 seconds to scan each page, that 500-page textbook is going to take me... let me check that. Right, okay, it's gonna take me 2.7 hours, or basically 3 hours, to scan one textbook. And that's just scanning it, that's not even reading it. So optical character recognition is really powerful, it's really useful, but it is only useful in really specific situations where you have the luxury of time to scan the document, and in all likelihood, it's going to be something that is really, really short. Now, optical character recognition, kind of like screen readers, used to be really expensive. You would either have to buy these sort of hardware camera systems, which you have to set up, and those would cost a few $100s, or there is an app called KNFB, which I think is priced pretty reasonably. It's about $100, so that's pretty good. But right now, the free one is Microsoft Seeing AI. It's completely free. I'm pretty sure this is an attempt by Microsoft to publicize their Azure computing vision sort of capabilities, and that's fine. But the fact is, it's free, it's good, it's pretty snappy and useful, and so yeah, there's pretty good options for OCR software these days, and yeah, solid B rank. Number 5, talking devices like talking kitchen skills or anything of that sort. So this, to the uninitiated, might sound really useful, but I'm going to give it a C ranking, and I'm going to explain why. The availability of talking devices sucks. It sucks so bad to order a talking device like a talking weighing scale or anything of that sort. It is incredibly frustrating. The reality is, a lot of these devices, the demand is not super high. A lot of people prefer to pay less for these kinds of things in order to get something that is maybe a bit more accurate, or more importantly, a bit more affordable. And so a lot of these talking devices end up not being very high in demand, and therefore they are both very expensive and very unavailable. Oh yeah, unfortunately, because availability is one of the most important rankings, as in if it's not there, it's not useful. Yeah, I can't give it any higher than a C rank. Sorry. Number 6. A human. This is going in the S tier. A human is a very useful assistive device that can both understand any form of context and do everything that another person can do, because guess what? They are human too. But seriously, having a person to help you is easily one of the most flexible and useful forms of help. It's also available, humans are not in short supply, let's just put it that way. And depending on how you think of it, a human can be pretty affordable, especially if you're, let's say, outdoors and you want to bother someone and pester them for directions. They are free. And so the only thing about another human is that it's not always practical to ask someone else for help. It can be embarrassing to be followed around by someone from your family everywhere you go. That is not practical. And also, let's be real, that does not sound fun for that family member. Also, sometimes you just need to pay for certain services to be done for you. Not that kind of paying someone for services. Get your mind out of the gutter, you filth. But yeah, having another person, very helpful. S tier. Number 7. Braille. Braille is definitely one of the most useful inventions for the blind. And the usefulness of Braille cannot be understated. These days, a lot of us will be using screen readers because it's more convenient, me included. I do have an excuse. I lost my eyesight relatively late in life, and so I just did not have the time or the usefulness to learn Braille. But for children who are born blind, Braille is an incredibly important resource in teaching children how to spell. Because if you think about it, if you use text-to-speech to teach children language, all they're going to learn is the speech part of the language. They are not going to know how words are being spelled. And so things like typing, for example, are going to be a real challenge if children who are blind are not taught Braille early in life. Braille was also really essential for the consumption of information among people who are blind before the digital age. And though its impact, like I said, has decreased over the years because of adoption of technology like screen readers and OCR, Braille, I think, will always have a place in blind society, and that's why it deserves an A rank. And by the way, just to be clear, I'm lumping all forms of Braille into this category, which include Braille printed media, Braille embossers, which are the printers that print Braille, and Braille displays, which are alternatives to computer monitors that display with Braille. Number 8, the alternative to the white cane, which are guide dogs or seeing eye dogs. Now, what am I going to give the rank to the beloved guide dog? I am going to rank it with B+. I hear the animal lovers rage. How dare you give the guide dog only B+? Are you out of your mind? Maybe, but here's my reason why. Look at my criteria, right? Availability, cost, practicality, complexity, and my personal preference. Guide dogs are not always available. That's the first problem. It's only been, I think, a few years since we in Singapore, where I live, were able to have locally trained guide dogs. Before that, to get a guide dog, you have to somehow find 3 weeks to take off work or school or whatever the case might be to fly to Australia to get training to pair with your guide dog. And the thing is, you can fly there, get the training, and you may not even come back with a guide dog because you may not be a good match. Guide dogs are definitely not the most accessible form of assistive device or companion, if you want to use a nicer word. They are not the most accessible for people who are blind. The cost is also another obstacle for people who are blind. Not everyone who is blind will have the means to support a guide dog. This is just going to be true. There are many people with vision impairments who are unemployed, and so getting a guide dog could honestly be a fairly irresponsible move if they don't have the means to feed the dog. You must remember that service animals are animals. They need to eat. And so it might not be financially feasible for everyone who could benefit from a guide dog to get a guide dog. A guide dog is also just not the right tool. Sorry, I had to say it, a service animal is a tool. But it may not be the right tool for everyone's lifestyle or purpose. For example, right now, I live a pretty sedentary lifestyle. I rarely go out because I work from home, I exercise at home, I eat at home, I don't really go out at all. Having a guide dog would be pretty counterintuitive to my current lifestyle because guide dogs need to go out a lot. They need to be able to maintain their training so they don't get rusty, and they also need exercise because if you have a dog, you should be walking it, even if it's not a guide dog. But those are just some of the cons of guide dogs. Guide dogs are also excellent companions. They make navigation smoother, and honestly, they make social interactions much more pleasant. I know of so many people who have been incredibly happy after they got their guide dog because it's just brought them so much joy. You cannot measure the amount of joy and comfort and companionship that a service animal like a guide dog can bring on top of its utility as a service animal. So with that in mind, a guide dog is a really, really useful and revolutionary addition to our arsenal as blind people, but it is not for everyone, and so it cannot be given a perfect score. If you disagree with me, smash that dislike button. Let me know how much you hate the fact that I did not give guide dogs a perfect A or, God forbid, an S tier. Come on, I'm waiting. Dislike my video. I'm just kidding. Number 9, speech to text, also known as dictation. So this is that feature that comes with almost every phone these days where you can press a button and you can talk into the phone and it would attempt to register what you are saying and type it down for you. Now, I'm going to give this a C rank because it is really useful, it can be really convenient, it comes with every phone nowadays, so it's pretty much available, but sometimes it can make you feel like you want to pull your hair out because it keeps misinterpreting things that you say. If you don't believe me, go and try it yourself. Your smartphone is not as smart as you think. It can't understand you all the time. So, dictation, C rank. Number 10, Tactile Floor Guides. Now, if you've ever been out and about and you've seen sort of metal plates or bumps on the floor and you wondered, what are those? Or maybe you are aware that blind people use that but you don't know how? Well, good news, I'm going to briefly explain what they are and I'm going to rank them at the B- tier. So these tactile floor guides basically allow you to use your feet when you're walking about, and basically they let you get an idea for what direction, roughly, you should be walking in. Now obviously the tactile floor guides are not going to magically be able to speak to you and tell you, oh yeah, you need to turn left, you need to turn right, the toilet's always right there. Like, it's not going to do any such thing for you. But what it does is, for anyone who has been familiarized with the area with proper orientation and mobility training, it allows these people to use that as a guide to roughly know where they need to go. Plus, if you are wondering what's the difference between the long strips and the small circles, the bumps, the strips indicate that you can continue walking forward, while the bump is what we call a decision point. So a decision point is basically telling you to stop here and make a decision on what you need to do. They often put this in places that have turns, so you can decide, do I need to turn left, right, or keep going straight. They also put this in front of staircases. I guess you gotta make the decision to be careful and not just walk off the stairs, which I have done. That is not the right decision, by the way. And sometimes decision points also end in front of elevators. So given the right training and of course the right implementation, they can be pretty useful and reliable guides for navigation, obviously, but they do come with their own problems. Like I said, they are low context forms of guiding. They are also sometimes implemented in an inconsistent manner. So some places would have them one way and another place would have them another way. So that can be frustrating when they're not all made the same. And the most important is that these tactile guides sometimes really take a long-winded path around sort of commonly used areas. Now, there is a good reason why they do that. Sometimes the tactile guides can sort of trip up the equipment or the machinery or the kind of mobility devices that people with physical disabilities use. So things like maybe not wheelchairs, but like motorized assistive vehicles, those kinds of things, like little scooters that some people with physical disabilities use. Those sometimes can trip over the tactile guides and cause the person to fall. So in order to make sure that they're not placed in areas where it can cause these accidents to happen, designers for buildings often tend to put the tactile guides towards the wall, or sometimes, like I said, make them take a really long-winded way around to where you need to go. So because of that, they are useful but not always. So B- I think is a fair rank. So yes, that has been all the assistive devices that I could think of to put into one comprehensive tier list for you. As you can see, there are a few notable S tiers, but honestly most of them fall somewhere in the middle, which should be correct. And if you are a person with blindness, or maybe a social worker, an assistive tech specialist, whatever the case might be, if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below. If you want me to take a look at any of these things in particular and make an entire video about them, let me know that as well. I'll be totally happy to do that. And actually, some of them I already have plans to do. So thanks for watching. This was a massive video. So please, if you enjoyed the video, tickle the like button, hit subscribe, smash that notification bell so that you can stay notified about my future uploads, and thank you so much for watching. Join me next time as I talk more about what it's like to live with blindness, and I'll see you next time. Bye!